There's something I've been hesitant to say, but I believe it needs to be spoken. Not to hurt you, not to shame you, but because if someone had told me this earlier, I would have stopped shrinking myself long ago. Here it is. You might be becoming an unattractive woman. And I don't mean your wrinkles, or your waistline, or the graying hair that's framing your face. No, I'm talking about something much deeper. Something that has nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with what's living inside your spirit. You see, aging doesn't make a woman less beautiful, but bitterness can. So can resentment. So can the refusal to laugh, to grow, or to let others shine. Over the years, I've met women in their 60s, 70s, 80s women who had every reason to be radiant, and yet something about them felt closed off, hardened, heavy. And I've met others with deeper wrinkles and louder joints who absolutely glowed. So what's the difference? It's not age, it's the attitude. And it's made me realize the ugliest traits a woman can wear are often invisible to her own eyes. Today, I want to walk you through 12 subtle signs that might be quietly dimming your light and that no one has dared to tell you. This isn't about judgment. It's about the truth. And it's an invitation to let go of what doesn't serve you anymore, so that what's beautiful in you can rise again. If even one of these signs resonates, I want to hear from you. Comment 1 if any of this feels familiar, or 0 if not yet. I read every word. And if this message touches your heart, I invite you to subscribe and stay connected. We're building something sacred here. Now, take a breath and come with me, because true beauty never fades, but it can be buried. Let's dig it back up together. First sign: clinging to the past. Ages you faster. Bitterness is like a shadow. You don't always see it, but it follows you everywhere. I once had tea with a woman in her 70s, elegant blouse, pearls, hair pinned just right. But the moment we sat down, her words began to curl around every wound she'd ever known. Her ex-husband from the 80s, the daughter who didn't visit enough, the promotion she didn't get at her job in 1992. She wasn't ranting. She was simply living in those moments, as if the past had become her home. And I remember leaving that table with a strange heaviness in my chest. Not because her stories weren't valid, but because they were still shaping her. Decades later, bitterness doesn't just live in the mind. It settles in the shoulders, tightens the voice, and hardens the eyes. It changes how we move through the world. And the truth is, many women don't even realize they're carrying it. I've seen it in the way someone sighs at every conversation, or how they speak with a why bother tone, like hope has become too expensive to keep. We all have a past. We all have scars. But when the old pain becomes louder than the present joy, something precious gets lost. And the worst part, others can feel it, even if you say nothing. Forgiveness, and I know this word scares people, isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about freeing yourself from carrying the weight forever. You can't wear lightness and bitterness at the same time. And if your beauty feels dim lately, ask yourself, what old memory am I still dressing in pain? You don't have to live there anymore. You really don't. Let's move on, because the next sign isn't about what you remember. It's about what you refuse to give. Sign number 2. Withholding kindness doesn't protect you. It ages you. There's a quiet kind of coldness that settles in when we forget how to be generous, not with money, but with our presence. A simple compliment, a gentle word, a warm smile that says, I see you, and you matter. When a woman reaches a certain age, she begins to think that praise is something only the young deserve, as if beauty or grace has an expiration date. She forgets that kindness is not a transaction. It's not something you lose by giving, it multiplies. But somewhere along the way, many begin to hold back. Maybe it's fear of seeming soft. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's the quiet ache of being overlooked too many times. And yet every time we withhold a kind word, we close off a piece of ourselves. We signal to the world, don't look at me. I don't want to connect. And slowly, that energy begins to show in our posture, in our tone, in the way people feel around us or don't. Kindness isn't weakness. It's a kind of light one that doesn't just illuminate others, but reflects back on your own face. When you lift someone else, you rise too. When you recognize another's beauty, yours softens into view. Aging doesn't require shrinking. But withholding warmth is a fast way to become invisible. So ask yourself gently, when was the last time I made another woman feel seen, just because I could? And more importantly, what part of me is afraid to shine light on someone else? Let's open that curtain, because the next sign reveals what happens when we stop giving space to others and start filling every silence with our own voice. Sign number 3, speaking more than listening makes you forgettable. There's a kind of beauty that doesn't come from your lipstick or earrings. It comes from silence, the kind of silence that listens, not just waits to speak. Many people think they're connecting when they share their stories. And yes, stories matter. But when every conversation begins with, "Let me tell you what I went through," when someone opens their heart and the next words you say are, "That reminds me of," it stops being connected. It becomes a competition. True connection is a soft space. It invites another person to feel safe, seen, and heard, not overshadowed. And yet, so many women fall into the habit of speaking to fill every silence, as if silence were something to be afraid of. But silence is where the soul breathes, and listening is the doorway to trust. Listening means you're not rehearsing your response while the other person speaks. It means you're not jumping in with advice unless asked. It means you're not turning someone's moment into your own. When you really listen, you create a small miracle. You say, "I care more about you than about being heard right now." That's rare, that's powerful, and that's what makes people remember you. Because truthfully, nobody wants to keep talking to someone who always turns the spotlight back on themselves. It's exhausting. It's lonely even in the middle of a conversation. If you've ever wondered why people stop calling, stop sharing, or quietly drift away, maybe it's not because they don't care. Maybe it's because they don't feel cared for. The most magnetic women I've ever met weren't the loudest or the most opinionated. They were the ones who listened with their full presence. The ones who knew that being quietly present can be more beautiful than saying all the right things. So today, ask yourself when someone talks to me, do I make them feel like the most important person in the room? Or am I simply waiting for my turn? Let this question sink in, because the next sign we'll explore is what happens when we stop caring for ourselves altogether, not out of necessity, but from slowly giving up. Sign number 4, giving up on appearance is not aging gracefully. There's a quiet line between aging naturally and giving up on yourself. It's not about wrinkles. It's not about gray hair or aching joints. It's about how you carry yourself, the silent message you send when you walk past a mirror. Somewhere along the way, many women begin to ask, why bother? Why wear perfume when no one will notice? Why put on real clothes when you're not going anywhere? Why fix your hair when no one's looking? But here's the deeper truth. You are always looking. You are the one who matters most. How you care for yourself tells your soul what you believe you're worth. And your body listens. Neglect doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, a few skipped showers here, a forgotten scarf there. The earrings you once loved left untouched in a drawer for years. And soon, the reflection in the mirror no longer feels like a friend. It feels like a stranger. Aging gracefully isn't about looking younger. It's about honoring the body and spirit that have carried you through 6 or 7 decades of life. It's saying, I'm still here, and I still deserve to feel alive. You don't need fancy makeup or trendy clothes, but you do deserve softness. You deserve to feel beautiful to yourself, not for others, but for the woman you see when you close the bathroom door and stand quietly in front of the glass. Putting on a clean blouse, a bright scarf, or brushing your hair isn't vanity. It's vitality. It's whispering to yourself, I matter. And when you do that, your posture changes. Your energy lifts. People notice not because you're polished, but because you're present. So no, letting go of your appearance isn't proof of strength. Sometimes it's a silent surrender. But today, you can reclaim that quiet power. Because the next sign we'll explore is even more subtle. It's how we treat others when our own wounds go unhealed. Sign number 5, turning men into enemies. Hurts you most. It's easy, maybe even comforting, to protect ourselves by putting up walls, especially when those walls were built from heartbreak, from betrayal, from years of giving more than we received. But what begins as protection can quietly become a prison, and sometimes, without realizing it, we start speaking in absolutes. All men are selfish. They only care about youth. I'm better off alone. Maybe you've said it out loud. Maybe you've only whispered it in your mind. But either way, those words leave a trace in your tone, in your posture, in your energy, and slowly, the warmth that once drew people in begins to fade. This isn't about needing a man. It's about needing to let go of the anger that men represent. Because when we carry resentment, we don't just push others away, we close off parts of ourselves. The parts that still want to trust, the parts that still hope, the parts that still dream of companionship, not romance, necessarily, but presence, laughter, shared mornings, the sound of another voice in the kitchen. You don't have to open your heart wide. But can you leave it slightly ajar? There are kind, decent men in this world, many of them just as lonely, just as cautious, just as unsure where they fit now that the years have passed. They're not all chasing youth. Some are simply hoping to be seen again, heard again, valued again. When you carry bitterness, it shows even if your lips are silent. But when you let it go, even just a little, your face softens, your body relaxes, your presence becomes magnetic. Not because you're trying, but because you've made room for grace again. So ask yourself gently, have I armored myself so tightly that even kindness can't reach me anymore? If yes, don't feel ashamed. Feel aware, because awareness is the beginning of healing. And the next sign we'll explore speaks to that inner fear, the one that assumes the worst in everyone before they've even said hello. Sign number 6. Expecting the worst in everyone doesn't make you wise. It makes you weary. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that settles deep into the bones, not from working too hard, but from expecting disappointment before anything even begins. It happens quietly. You start noticing the way someone smiles and wonder what they're hiding. You hear a kind word and assume there's a catch. You receive a small gift and instantly question the motive behind it. Some might call it caution, but more often, it's weariness disguised as wisdom. We've all been let down. We've all trusted the wrong person, loved too quickly, believed too much, and after a while, we start building armor out of assumptions. I bet they just want something. She's only being nice because she feels guilty. He's probably lying. These thoughts don't make us smarter. They make us smaller. They shrink our world until connection starts to feel like danger, and kindness feels suspicious. What's heartbreaking is this. The people who expect the worst often do so because they once gave their best and got hurt. They offered love, openness, sincerity, and in return, were met with betrayal, dismissal, or silence. So they adapted. They stopped trusting, and in doing so, they stopped receiving too. Because when your heart is locked tight, even goodness can't get in. We like to tell ourselves, I'm just being realistic. But realism without hope is just bitterness in a nicer coat. And the longer we live behind suspicion, the lonelier it becomes. When you expect the worst, you often miss the best. That neighbor who smiled just to be kind. That cashier who remembered your name because it mattered. That friend who called simply because she missed you, not because she needed something. The truth is, there are still good people out there. Not perfect, not saintly, but honestly, caring, flawed, and trying just like you. And when you lead with fear, you teach the world to keep its distance. But when you choose softness, not naivety, but openness, you teach others how to approach you. Because kindness is not weakness. It's a kind of strength that knows how to be gentle even after being hurt. So if you've noticed yourself flinching at compliments, brushing off support, or doubting every kind gesture, pause, not to criticize yourself, but to ask what part of me is still aching and pretending it's just being careful. You don't have to let everyone in. You don't have to say yes to every hand that reaches out. But can you at least consider the possibility that not everyone is out to harm you? That some people still show up with love in their pockets, not tricks up their sleeves. When you begin to shift this one belief, when you start expecting, maybe instead of never, your face will soften, your voice will sound warmer, and your spirit, it will begin to stretch again. Suspicion wrinkles the soul. Trust, even just a little, gives it breath. So ask yourself, am I protecting myself from pain, or have I locked myself away from joy? Because the next sign we'll explore reveals how this unhealed ache can quietly leak out, not just in what you say, but in what you whisper behind someone's back. Sign number 7. Gossip isn't connection, it's erosion. There's something strangely satisfying about talking about others. It makes you feel momentarily powerful, as if by examining someone else's flaws, you rise above them. But that feeling doesn't last, because the moment the words leave your mouth, something begins to decay. Gossip is often disguised as bonding, especially among women. We think we're just chatting. We call it catching up. We laugh at stories that aren't ours to tell, but slowly, without meaning to, we build a community not of connection, but of critique. When women sit together and pick apart someone else's weight gain, her new boyfriend, her daughter's choices, they are not growing closer. They are growing colder. And the more we do it, the more it becomes a habit, a shortcut to feeling less lonely, a quick fix for our own insecurities. But here's the harsh truth. Every time you speak poorly about another woman, you chip away at your own dignity. Because deep down, people remember how you made them feel. And if they hear you talking about someone behind their back, they'll wonder what you say about them when they leave the room. Gossip doesn't make you interesting. It makes you untrustworthy. And that's not the legacy we want to leave. Older women have the extraordinary gift of perspective. We've lived through decades of change, heartbreak, healing, and growth. We've earned our place in circles of wisdom. But when we use our voice to spread smallness instead of strength, we betray that wisdom. It's not about being fake. It's about being intentional. The next time someone offers you the latest scoop, pause. You don't have to agree. You don't have to judge. You can just smile and change the subject. You can say, I hope she's okay, and mean it. You can lead with empathy instead of amusement. Because here's what I've seen radiant older women speak with softness. They lift others in quiet ways. They celebrate rather than critique. And because of that, people feel safe around them, drawn to them, healed by them. So ask yourself, truly, do I use my words to connect or to divide? Because if you want to be remembered as elegant, warm, and magnetic, it won't come from how well you dress or how witty you are. It will come from how others feel when your name is mentioned in a room you're no longer in. Let that be your mirror. And let that reflection guide you to the next part of our journey, where we'll explore a mistake many women defend as honesty, but that often leaves a trail of loneliness behind. Sign number 8. Rudeness isn't honesty, it's unkindness in disguise. There's a phrase many older women like to use, I just say it like it is. Or I'm too old to sugarcoat anything. It sounds bold. It sounds fearless. But often, what it really means is I've stopped caring how my words land, and I call it honesty. Let's be clear. Honesty is a virtue. But honesty without compassion is just cruelty in a louder tone. There's a way to speak truth with grace, a way to express disappointment, frustration, even boundaries without humiliating, belittling, or bulldozing others. Being blunt doesn't make you wise. It makes people flinch. It makes children avoid you. It makes friends walk on eggshells. And over time, it leaves you isolated not because people can't handle your truth, but because they're exhausted by your delivery. Rudeness isn't a personality. It's often unhealed of pain. given a microphone. Somewhere along the line, many women confuse being respected with being feared. They think if they speak sharply, people will listen. If they demand, they'll obey. But respect built on fear is not respect. It's distance, it's silence, it's people pretending just to get through the conversation. A truly respected woman is one whose voice is calm but firm, whose words leave room for others to breathe. She's not trying to win the room, she's trying to understand it. The truth is, how you say something is just as important as what you say. Tone matters. Timing matters. Tenderness matters. When you bark at the waitress, scold the receptionist, or shame your daughter for her choices, you may tell yourself you're just being honest. But what others hear is, your presence irritates me, and I've forgotten how to speak with kindness. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to tell the truth. But can you do it without breaking someone else in the process? The older we get, the more precious our words become. They carry the weight of decades, and they have the power to hurt or to heal. So ask yourself, am I speaking from wisdom or from wounds? Because the women who age beautifully don't lose their fire. They simply learn to warm others with it, not burn them down. And the next sign we'll explore comes when the fire inside begins to go out, when laughter fades, and the light in our eyes starts to dim. Sign number 9, when you stop laughing, you stop living. Laughter is one of the first things to leave when life starts feeling heavy. It doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes, it slips away so quietly. We don't even notice it's gone until someone tells a joke, and we don't even crack a smile. You begin to sigh more than you chuckle. You roll your eyes instead of leaning into the moment. You critique the music, the neighbors, the weather. Anything new becomes annoying. Joy feels childish. Lightness feels irrelevant. But here's the truth. Joy is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And no matter how many birthdays you've celebrated, joy still belongs to you. The most magnetic older women I've ever met aren't the ones with perfect skin or impeccable clothes. They're the ones who laugh at their own forgetfulness, who find humor in the absurdity of life, who don't take themselves too seriously because they've lived long enough to know that a day without laughter is a day only half lived. When you stop laughing, something inside you hardens. You become watchful, guarded, tired. And eventually, people begin to sense it, not because you've changed physically, but because the spirit that once sparkled in your eyes has dimmed. No one wants to be around someone who finds fault with everything, but everyone gravitates towards someone who radiates joy, even in small, quiet ways. And this kind of joy isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It can live in a smile at your reflection, a shared joke with the cashier, a giggle when your knees crack while bending down. It's not about being silly, it's about staying soft. Life has already brought you storms. You've stood through loss, disappointment, and uncertainty. You've earned the right to laugh without guilt, because laughter doesn't erase your wisdom, it amplifies it. It says, I know what matters, and I choose to stay open to light, even after all I've seen. So if it's been a while since you've laughed, really laughed, this is your invitation. Not to pretend, not to force joy, but to seek out little sparks, funny memories, old friends, silly shows, moments that make your chest expand and remind you I'm still here, I'm still alive. And when you start laughing again, your posture will shift, your voice will rise, your presence will soften, because laughter, especially in older women, is the most radical act of youth without needing to be young. Let joy back in. Let it sit beside your wisdom. There's enough room for both. And as we move into the next sign, we'll begin to see how even when we stay silent, our face tells a story, one that joy and bitterness write with very different hands. Sign number 10. Bitterness shows on your face. Even in silence. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. But what happens when the curtains have been drawn for too long? You may think you're presenting yourself well. Your hair is done. Your clothes are clean. Your makeup applied. But what does your face say when you're not smiling, when no one is around, and you're not posing for the world? That's where the truth lives. Not on the surface, but in the stillness. You see, your face becomes a map of your emotional life. Every frown you've held on to, every sigh left unchecked, every moment of judgment, bitterness, or resentment that lingered too long, they don't just disappear, they etch. They settle into the corners of your mouth, the furrow of your brows, the heaviness behind your eyes. And the saddest part, we don't even notice because we've grown used to it. We think this is just how we look now, but it's not age. It's what age has carried. There's a kind of woman who walks into a room and says nothing, yet people feel her presence. She might not have youthful features, but there's something soft in her gaze, a kindness in the way her face rests. And then there are others, whose presence feels sharp even in silence, whose faces seem stuck in a permanent scowl, not because they're mean, but because they've worn bitterness like a second skin for so long. The difference isn't in the wrinkles, it's in the energy behind them. Because faces, especially with age, are no longer about symmetry or smoothness. They're about stories. And if the story you've been carrying is filled with resentment, unspoken anger, or disappointment, it will show, even when you try to hide it. So what can you do? Start small. Next time you're alone, stand in front of the mirror. Let your face go neutral. No smile, no pose, just stillness. What do you see as your expression naturally open, or tense, soft, or hardened? Don't judge it, just notice it, because awareness is the first step toward change. And then do something gentle. Think of someone you love. Breathe deeply. Say a kind word to yourself, out loud. Let your face feel warmth again, not because someone else deserves it, but because you do. Our face is not a mask, it's a mirror. It reflects not just age, but attitude. Not just year, but emotional patterns. And the good news, it's never too late to soften what life has hardened. When you choose forgiveness, gratitude, laughter, you begin to shift the entire architecture of your presence, not by changing your features, but by changing the emotion behind them. You become magnetic again, not because of how you look, but because of how you feel to be around. So ask yourself, what is my face telling the world when I'm not speaking? And more importantly, is that the message I want to leave behind? Because as we move toward the next sign, we'll explore what happens when the inside begins to give up entirely, not out of physical decline, but from emotional resignation. Sign number 11. You've convinced yourself life is already over. There's a kind of quiet death that happens long before our final breath. It doesn't show up on scans or charts. No doctor will diagnose it, but it's real. And it begins the moment a woman stops believing there is more ahead than behind. You hear it in her voice, I've done all I needed to do. It's too late for me now. That part of my life is over. At first, it sounds like acceptance. But if you listen closely, it's resignation, a slow, silent surrender. Yes, our bodies slow down. Yes, the mirror reflects a version of ourselves we sometimes don't recognize. But the moment we stop trying, stop learning, stop dreaming, we don't just grow old, we grow hollow, because the soul doesn't age like the body does. It doesn't wrinkle or sag or break down. It waits. It waits for you to pick it up again, to invite it back into the dance of life. And the truth is, it's not age that makes a woman feel invisible. It's apathy. It's doing the same thing, in the same room, with the same thoughts, day after day, and calling it normal. You were not born to fade quietly into repetition. You were not built for stillness. Stillness is not peace when it's laced with boredom and emotional exhaustion. It's just quiet despair. But here's the good news. You don't need to travel the world or reinvent yourself. You just need to say yes to something. Say yes to a new book. Yes to trying that art class. Yes to putting on lipstick even if you're staying home. Yes to asking your neighbor for coffee. Yes to letting yourself want again. Because the moment you allow yourself to want, you're alive again. And life is beautiful. It radiates. It softens your face. It brings color to your cheeks and curiosity to your eyes. You are not too old to grow. You are not too old to be surprised. You are not too old to feel excited. You are not too old to change. Aging beautifully is not about preservation. It's about participation. It's about being in life messy, imperfect, joyful, curious life. So ask yourself, not what's the point, but what do I still want to feel before I go? What parts of me are still waiting to come alive? Because as long as you are breathing, your story is still being written, and the next page is blank waiting for you. As we enter the final sign, we'll uncover one of the most damaging habits of all, comparing yourself to women half your age and believing you've already lost. Sign number 12. Comparing yourself to younger women is a losing game. Let's be honest. She's younger. Her skin is smoother. Her waist is tighter. Her smile is still untouched by years of heartbreak and heavy truths. You see her on TV, on Instagram, at the grocery store, and for a moment, you feel smaller, less important, less seen. Maybe you think, I used to look like that. Or worse, he probably notices her, not me. And in that silent moment, without anyone saying a word, you lose something precious. But here's what no one tells you. You are not meant to win a race you no longer belong in. Because beauty at 20 is biology. But beauty at 60, 70, 80, that's a masterpiece. Youth is admired, but age is respected when carried with grace. The problem isn't that young women are beautiful. They are. The problem is thinking that their beauty diminishes yours. It doesn't. Their glow doesn't steal your light. In fact, if your sense of worth is shaken by someone else's smooth skin, the issue isn't your age, it's your anchor. You've already lived through chapters she hasn't even opened yet. You've survived losses she hasn't dreamed of. You've held babies, buried friends, stood in silence when there were no words to say, and still, you rise. No Instagram filter can fake that kind of depth. No makeup tutorial can teach presence. No fashion trend can copy the quiet knowing in your eyes. When you compare yourself to youth, you forget the most powerful truth. Your beauty is not behind you. It's underneath you. It's layered in experience, in resilience, in the way you listen, in the way you comfort, on the way you walk into a room and bring calm without saying a thing. So if you find yourself sighing when you scroll, if you catch your reflection and immediately critique it, if you feel like you've become invisible, pause. And remember, you are not less. You are more, just a different kind of more seasoned, more soulful, more sincere. You don't need to compete. You need to return to yourself, to your elegance, to your story, to the radiant, powerful woman you've been becoming all along. So next time you see a younger woman and feel envy creeping in, try this instead. Bless her, then bless yourself. Wish her well on the road you've already walked. And keep walking forward, proudly with your head held high, not because you're younger, but because you're wiser. And that wisdom, that is your real beauty, that is your glow. Maybe as you listened to these 12 signs, a few stung. Maybe you saw a little of yourself in the bitterness, in the silence, in the self-neglect. And if so, I want you to know that doesn't make you bad. It makes you honest. We all carry habits that once served us, that once protected us, but no longer fit the woman we're becoming. And recognizing them isn't a weakness, it's wisdom. What matters now is what you choose next. Because at any age, especially this age, you still have a choice. You can choose softness. You can choose joy. You can choose to forgive, to rise, to show up as a woman you're proud of, not perfect, but present. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not past your prime. You are standing in a sacred chapter of life, the one where you finally get to stop performing, stop pleasing, and start returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Let that woman speak. Let her wear what she loves. Let her cry when she needs to. Let her dance to music from 1964. Let her say no without apology. Let her smile at strangers just because it feels good. Let her bloom not despite her age, but because of it. You don't need to go back in time to be beautiful again. You need to go deeper, wider, gentler. There is still magic in your laugh, still power in your story, still grace in the way you carry your weary, wonderful heart through this world. And maybe, just maybe, the most beautiful chapter is the one you're about to write. So now, I ask you, which part of this journey made you pause? Which sign felt like it whispered directly to your soul? Please share it in the comments. I read every word. Your reflection may be the one that helps another woman feel seen. If this video touched your heart, please subscribe and turn on the bell. I'd be honored to walk with you through whatever comes next. Because aging doesn't mean disappearing. It means unfolding. It means returning. It means becoming more deeply yourself than you've ever been before. You're not fading. You're just beginning to glow.